Our speaker today is Heidi Wallace. She's the Executive Director of Empower Montana. Her life experience as a sixth-generation non-Indigenous Montanan led her to pursue a life of creating positive change in individuals and communities. She has a bachelor's degree of social work and a BA in Native American Studies from where she was honored in 2010 with a Distinguished Alumni Award. For the past 20 years, she's been focused on advancing youth leadership and creating just institutions by assisting organizations and communities to dismantle oppressive practices. Through her work with Empower Montana, she's influenced policy change and trained thousands of individuals to build safer and more inclusive schools, organizations, and communities. And so with that, I ask everyone to mute, and I give you Heidi Wallace.
Thank you so much, Jim, and good morning, everyone. It is wonderful to see your bright, shiny faces on this dreary day. I'm really excited to have a little time with you this morning to share about our organization, Empower Montana, and the work that we're doing. I'm excited too for some questions later. I'm gonna pull up I'll tell you a little bit about myself, then I'll pull up my screen. I have been with the organization 14 years and started as a youth programs coordinator, one of two staff, the founder, Ami Thurber, and myself. Was really able to grow the youth programs throughout the state and have been executive director for almost 8 years, I think. A little about my background and why this work is really important to me. As Jim shared in my bio, I claim my cultural identity as non-Indigenous sixth-generation Montanan. I have a lot of pride for my Montana culture. I was born in Wolf Point, Montana, which is on the Fort Peck Reservation, the very northeast corner of Montana. It's where my mom's family is from. And I spent all my summers there as a young person. And I remember being very young and recognizing the division that existed within that community between the white community members and the Native community members. And as a young person, I didn't have the skills or confidence to ask questions, to interrupt negative stereotypes. I didn't have the language. I didn't have really the opportunities to build relationships across group lines. And I think that planted the seed in me to want to do social justice work. I think I have one of the best jobs ever. It's very trying, but I have the incredible opportunity to travel across the state of Montana, really creating safe, comfortable spaces to learn more about each other, to build bridges across those divides, and to really, start building those authentic relationships along the common goal of just loving our states. That brings me to the work of Empower Montana. We are a nonprofit. We were founded in 1999, so 21 years in existence. We started at the University of Montana as a campus chapter of the National Coalition Building Institute. And the work grew from campus to include a community chapter. And then we created our own nonprofit and moved away from our chapter membership so that we could really authentically serve Montana and really foster our program development and curriculum development to really meet the unique needs of Montana. Our mission is to create a just and inclusive society. A small but mighty team carry out that mission. And how we do that is by empowering individual leadership to correct systemic inequities, to transform institutions, and to strengthen communities. I'm going to pop up my screen just so that you can see some pictures and get a sense of our work. We have 3 areas of work. Oh gosh, am I not going to find it? Our 3 areas of work are working with businesses and organizations. That includes nonprofits, state agencies, the healthcare industry, law enforcement agencies, and we do building inclusive work and service environment trainings, strengthening cross-cultural collaborations. Our work since last spring, despite going virtual, has really grown quite a bit in our area of consulting, especially around racial equity, access, diversity, and inclusion. I think we've worked with over a dozen local businesses and organizations as they dive deeper into their commitment to ensure that their organizations and businesses have a lens of racial equity at the foundation of their work. We've also been doing a lot of mediation, and we tailor all of our work really to best meet the needs of the group that we're working with. Our other area of work is youth and schools. I think this is often our most inspiring and vibrant work. We train high school students to be peer leaders in our curriculum, and they travel across the state with us or through the interwebs now, working with youth K through 12 on building inclusive schools. It includes allyship training, anti-bullying, skill building, violence prevention. And we also train educators and administrators on inclusive teaching and learning environments. Our after-school programs, we have a handful of those. One is called EPIC, Empowering People, Inspiring Change. And that is offered in the middle schools here in Missoula, but also we have one of those programs in Ronan with Ronan Middle School. And that club, all of our youth clubs are co-facilitated by high school mentors and really guided by the youth and their needs, what they want more skills around, but also a safe space for them to discuss the issues that they see happening in their schools and communities, with also getting really the support and amplification to create the change that they want to see. We also have a couple constituency groups. The first is called Youth Forward, and it is our group for young people, high school age, who identify as gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, gender diverse. And we've had that program for about 10 years now. We also have a program that's focused on allyship for LGBTQ young people for elementary and middle school age. That's called BU Crew. Last year, we launched a BIPOC youth group. BIPOC is Black, Indigenous, and People of Color youth group that was really visioned by our young people that we've met in our youth programs, who really wanted a space unique to them for them to build resilience, to activate around creating change within their schools. And that is led by our first ever racial justice intern that we had a few years ago. She graduated from U of M and came back, and we hired her to lead that program. BIPOC youth. Oh, and our Youth Advisory Council. We have a Youth Advisory Council of young people who are middle school through high school, who are our youth board, and they guide and vision all of our youth programming. And so really all of our youth work has been shaped by our Youth Advisory Council. We host an Empowering Youth Leadership Institute every summer, except for last summer. We had to do it virtual, but we bring together about 60 or 70 high school students from around Missoula and Ronan, Frenchtown, some rural communities. And they come together to learn our curriculum, to build bridges across group lines, to really be connected and inspired to go back into their schools and communities and lead however they want to lead. We've been doing that for, when we go back this summer to Camp Paxson at Seeley Lake, it'll be our 14th year of hosting that institute. Our community work is varied. We host and coordinate the Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration Committee. So save the date, January 18th, for the first time ever. That will be all virtual. It's shaping up to be an incredible program that includes some keynote speakers, including youth leaders, and also an art and essay contest that young people K through 12 participate in, that is connected to one of Martin Luther King Jr.'s quotes, and they write about their response to it or do art. Our young people put on Diversity Day celebration every year, and that first celebration was created when Missoula City Council was passing the first non-discrimination ordinance supporting LGBTQ community members. And so every year our youth put on a community event that amplifies youth voices, but also serves as an honoring of some critical policy change that happens within our community. And our young people feel very proud of their connection to passing that non-discrimination ordinance. They think that it should be a holiday. We also are the coordinator and funder for the Missoula Inclusion, Diversity, Equity Alliance. It's called IDEA. And we often support the community in responding to controversial issues. One example, I'm sure you can reflect back on this, is when the Poverello Center was moving from its downtown location after 30 years. We were contracted to support the community in feeling engaged and connected to that process. It included a 3-month facilitated process that included education, hearing from the voices of our community members who are living with homelessness. It really was an opportunity for community members to feel like they could have a voice in that process and those decisions that were being made around finding a location. And how I got to really get to know Jim, one other way that we offer support to the community is we host an 8-week series for white identity people called True Colors, which is an Eliminating White Racism series that gives folks an opportunity to deconstruct individual and institutional racism and create skills and actions around how we can be active in anti-racist allyship. We were able to host an 8-week series for Holy Spirit, and we just finished that a few weeks ago. But we also offer that to the community and on campus over the years, and we'll be hosting another one of those series this spring. So let me try to get my screen share up again, just so I can show you all some of, there we go. I'm not that tech savvy. My colleague, Alex, isn't here for me to say, can you put up the slides for me? Oh, slow down. So we're also connected to some coalitions and other networks that give our young people a chance to have their voices heard around policy change. Many years ago, the youth in Missoula worked with the school board to include more inclusive language in their bullying and harassment policies. That was one of their policy change successes. We've been forging a really great partnership with Ronan Schools, with the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes. And they launched one of our after-school programs. Our Youth Forward group worked with the city to create the first Montana Rainbow Crosswalk. Here's some photos of that big celebration. It's a little faded. You can see there was some vandalism to our beautiful crosswalk within 24 hours of it being laid down, but that is not going to deter our young people in ensuring that our community is safe, welcoming, and inclusive. Here's some examples of our Martin Luther King Jr. celebration and Diversity Day. Here's some examples of our trainings and professional development skill building that we offer to businesses and organizations. Okay, I'm going to stop that. I thought it would be nice to just share a little bit about how our organization has been responding during these unprecedented times since last spring with not only COVID pandemic, but with the critical rise in attention and action around racial justice and inequities. I said we're a pretty small organization. We have four full-time staff and a few part-time staff. We also have a full-time Vista. Thank goodness for AmeriCorps program. I do a shout out for that program. Right away we transferred to all virtual. And I would have to say that our work is really in-person work. I'm an in-person connector. So that has been a little bit challenging, especially I think for our young people, just not having a space that they can go to connect with their peers and really foster those connections, I think has been my greatest heartbreak in regards to our organizational shift. Doing our trainings for businesses and organizations virtually, some people on the team are really glad that we don't have to take, 6-hour road trips one way for a 3-hour training. I love those road trips, so I'm really missing those, but we have been able to still continue really all of our work virtually. We had to do some dramatic furloughs, right? In the really, when we had the shutdown, which was definitely challenging just for our staff to have to, not be getting the same financial support, but also just, it was hard on the organization to just kind of have to have that pause. We brought everyone back, but we're still working reduced hours. With a small nonprofit, we had to make some quick decisions around our budget and just not knowing how things are going to be, the uncertainty, not being able to do our events in person. It's a little terrifying as a leader, I have to say. We're just trying to be as conservative as possible to take advantage of as many resources as our wonderful governor is offering with the state COVID response funding. In fact, just today, we found out that we are getting reimbursed with the technology grant, which I do have a funny story. We've been barely spending any money. We reduced our budget by about $70,000 July 1. So with this tech grant, you have to buy everything first and get reimbursed. And we spent more in one day, like the Amazon shopping cart that day. We were all just like floating on air. But I was feeling really terrified because we spent more in that Amazon shopping cart on technology than we have in my whole 14 years with this organization. But luckily today we found out we got approved, so we can start unpacking the boxes. So yeah, I think that, what's been hard but also inspiring is that there is incredible division within our community and state. And how I think that we're uniquely poised to respond in these times is that we're bridge builders. We are committed to meeting people where they're at, to fostering those connections, to creating opportunities for education, to learn from each other, to get skills together, and to work together to ensure that our community members are safe and welcomed and included. And, we often say the quote, "We were made for these times." And that is something that I continue to channel in my mind, even on the most difficult days. And sometimes for those difficult conversations, because this is a time where we bring people in, and it's not a time to build up walls and foster that division. So I have great hopes for our community and state. And, I'm inspired every day by our youth leaders who are really just super fantastic. and I will follow their lead any day. And so that's my little sort of general overview. I would love to just, answer questions. I would also love to hear what you're noticing as some of the most pressing needs within our community, how you're seeing the best responses, and how our organization can continue to be a resource to our community.